Joshua McElwee, Vatican correspondent for the National Catholic Reporter.
And I'm Cindy Wooden, the Rome Bureau Chief for Catholic News Service.
We together edited a book called A Pope Francis Lexicon, which is a collection of 54 essays looking at the different words, phrases, and themes the Pope has highlighted in his ministry. Kevin at Center of Concern asked us to speak to you about the book here from the Vatican in Rome, where we both live. The book came together really because Liturgical Press had looked at an Italian book called the Pope Francis Vocabulary and wanted an English edition that would look at the different themes, ideas, thoughts that the Pope had highlighted. The idea was that it would be better to have a bunch of authors reflecting on the Pope instead of one, so we could emphasize different facets, different parts of the Pope's ministry.
For choosing the 54 words that are in the volume, basically we sat and brainstormed. Some were very obvious key concepts for this papacy, like encounter, dialogue, periphery, mercy. Others were words that Pope Francis uses often that we thought might need to be explored kind of more in depth or more kind of step by step, like discernment. The Pope talks about discernment a lot, but I don't know if that he's ever explained step by step what's involved in Ignatian discernment.
And to choose the authors who would write on these themes, we really wanted to look for people who could offer something kind of authoritative about how the Pope thinks, or something new, different, a different take on what the Pope means when he says certain words. So for example, to write about how the Pope thinks about reform, we went to Honduran Cardinal Oscar Rodriguez Maradiaga, who is the coordinator of the Council of Cardinals, and has been working with the Pope for 5 years to bring about reform in the Church. For the idea of encounter, we went to the Argentine Archbishop Victor Fernandez, who is someone who has helped the Pope write several of his exhortations and come to an understanding of what he means, and he wrote about how the Pope thinks about encounter. And then on the issue of women, we really wanted someone who could bring out some of the difficulties the Pope has faced, particularly on that issue. And so we went to Astrid Gajiwala, an Indian woman who helped the Indian bishops write the first ever gender policy in the global Catholic Church, really highlighting the different people who could bring something really interesting, authoritative, or different to light about the papacy.
While Josh and I couldn't be with you today, we are happy that 3 of the authors in the volume are. The first is Carrie Robinson. She wrote about leadership, and she was an obvious choice to reflect on what Pope Francis means when he says leadership, because of her long experience with the Leadership Roundtable, but also because of her life of service to the Church. I think it's really important how she highlights leadership as service, while also emphasizing the importance of professional characteristics such as accountability and transparency.
The second of our authors with you today is Massimo Fagioli, a theologian at Villanova University, who wrote in the book about how the Pope speaks about the Roman Curia, or the Vatican bureaucracy that's supposed to help him on a day-to-day basis. And we thought Massimo could bring a particular take on the Curia as an Italian, someone who's more familiar with the Curia than maybe other theologians might be. And what was interesting for us about his essay was he spoke about how the Pope Francis has not really focused as heavily on the Curia as past popes. His reform efforts have gone beyond the Vatican to try to reshape how the Catholic Church's vision is working, its wider model for itself, and the changes in the Curia might come about as a kind of a consequence of that wider vision.
And finally, we have Jordan Denari Duffner. We were fortunate that she already was working with Liturgical Press on her book, Finding Jesus Among Muslims. It's great to have a young, new voice included in this book, and someone who not only is summarizing what the Pope has said about youth, but is actually applying what he has said to her own life and living that out in a very clear kind of way.
So thank you so much for having this event and for focusing on our book. As Cindy said, we wish we could be with you, but we give you a big hello from Rome, and we say hi especially to everyone in the back.